King, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In my family, Senator Cotton, the legend is that my father-in-law memorized the eye chart so he could enlist 2 weeks after Pearl Harbor, served honorably in Asia during World War II. And I want to follow up on exactly the question Senator Cotton is talking about. Cannabis is now legal in 21 states. 47% of Americans are in states where it's legal. And again, like Senator Cotton, I'm not advocating lowering standards to the point where it endangers safety or the effectiveness of the Army, but a lot of teenagers are suffering in part from depression coming out of the pandemic. ADHD is a common condition affecting about 10% of young people in our country. They take medication. All of those things in the first instance are barriers. So I think what Senator Cotton and I are saying is the waiver process is fine, except it's a waiver process, and it involves a lot of steps and a lot of time, and somebody might just say, the heck with it, I've got a good offer over here in the private sector. So give me your thoughts about, you mentioned streamlining that process. Go a little deeper on that.
Thank you, Senator King. I think first what I'd say is we've got to maximize the flexibility within the waiver process and streamline it so that we can achieve the common sense results that you and Senator Cotton were talking about.
And streamline entails or implies faster.
Yes, Senator.
Months and months are not going to do because this young person is going to say, the heck with this, I'm moving on.
Right, and I've looked at the data in the Army, and you'll find that even in the last year and a half, the biggest kind of requests for waivers that we get are behavioral health, where somebody has sought out behavioral health care earlier in their life, or they've been treated for depression or anxiety, ADHD, which are very common, as we know, in the target population. So we're seeing the number of those waivers being granted increase. But I think to your point, we've got to figure out how to get to the left of that. We've got to work more closely, which is step 2 across the department, with how we're doing our medical accessions and what those standards are to make sure that they're updated with the latest science and, most importantly, what the target population looks like.
I would commend you a Rand Corporation study from, I think, October of 21 that studied what the outcomes were of people that came in on the waivers vis-a-vis the other applicants, and basically they found essentially no difference. In fact, some of these people did actually better in terms of making rank and retention. So I think the data is going to be very important on this. Let me move on to another data question. Do you have data on the relationship between the unemployment rate nationally and recruiting? We're now in one of the tightest labor markets I've ever seen in my lifetime. Everybody that comes to my office, their number one issue is workers. This morning I had loggers from Maine, truck drivers, plumbers, doctors, nurses, retail. So I'm interested. Intuitively, it seems to me that your job is going to be tougher when the labor market is so tight and there's so many other opportunities. Is there any data on that? Secretary Raven, do you know?
Yes, we have that data, and it shows a clear correlation between the labor market and new accessions.
Unemployment goes down, recruiting goes down.
Yes, sir. But in fairness, the challenges that we're looking at is more than what the unemployment rate is here today. We have a real challenge in explaining the value of military service to younger individuals, and we're approaching this as a multi-year initiative to reintroduce Americans to public service, whether that's uniform service, civilian service, working in shipyards. We need to have a national conversation about all of those.
And I think you've touched on this point before, but one of the I don't know if it's a problem, but something we have had testimony that 84% of the current members of the professional military are from military bloodlines. And that narrows the focus. And one of the problems is geographically, for example, there are no military examples on the street in the Northeast. In my town of Brunswick, Maine, we had a naval air station for 40 or 50 years. Kids got to know people from the military. They got to know them as their coaches. They saw them in town. That's gone now. And I think part of what you have to do is reestablish intense recruitment in areas that don't have a military presence, because that's a fertile pool, but they just have lost contact. That's one of the downsides of the professional military. 1% of Americans are involved directly in the military today. Talk to me about geography. We don't want the military to be a geographic organization?
Sir, I'd say the Navy and Marine Corps have several efforts. One is to reconnect service members with their high schools. That as they go back home to visit their parents, talk to some kids about what military service means to them. On the Navy side, we have not only Fleet Weeks, but Navy Weeks throughout the country. We recently had one in Tucson, Arizona, where again, folks come out from California, tell the story of what it means to be in the
Navy
Navy.
in Tucson is a concept.
Yes, sir. We are working on that, and we're working on making sure that we have recruiters in all those areas of the country that are not represented by military installations.
Thank you. I'm out of time, but I assume you all are making similar efforts to geographically disperse your effort.
Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator King. Senator Hirono, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the panelists because we have been talking about the challenges of recruiting